Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. We have a great episode for you today. As always, here is what we have on the agenda. Mitch McConnell with a big statement in the Senate today saying the Capitol assault was provoked by Trump, a clear condemnation, and what for a lot of members could be seen as a greenlighting of a vote to convict on impeachment. We look ahead to the inauguration and the new president, Joe Biden, what he's promised to do on day one and his first 100 days as president. We're going to rate his priorities. Also, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer working out their power-sharing agreement in the Senate. We're going to discuss that. Also, the hilarious and really batshit insane, I hate to say it, but it's true. Or, I don't hate to say it, but the last days of the Trump White House, and a nice story about who Tucker Carlson has been hanging out with. It is a little bit surprising for that big-time populist who always rails about the wars in the military-industrial complex and how bad all of that stuff is and how bad or how great Trump is for not starting any wars. He was actually seen at dinner in George W. Bush's home. That seems to be a little bit revealing. We're going to talk about that and some great Trump story I'm really looking forward to sharing on the show later. All right, welcome in, everybody. It's Newsflash 472. And with us today, we have James Stanley. James, thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we do start with a very consequential story today. Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, he has been said to, ever since the Capitol, he really has been debating. And I think we really have to break this down, I think, for really what it is, which is a complete, calculated abandonment. He's taken the time since January 6th. He's weighed his options. He's been in touch with all the tentacles of the Republican Party, the corporate leaders, the big donors, and all those people pretty much sticking his finger to the wind for a good chunk of his caucus and saying, is it worth it if I abandon this president? And is it worth it if I say, you know what, it's about time. We got to get Trump out of the party because he's going to start to become a problem for us. He has lived his usefulness. He's outlived his usefulness and needs to be put down in a kind of a very aggressive way, which is a large part of the Republican caucus voting to impeach. And that is going to be interesting to see. I don't know what the schedule is for the trial, but he's doing it in his own way. And this is a pretty remarkable thing that he did today, saying this. He said the mob was fed lies on the Senate floor today, referring to an attempt by Trump to overturn the election based on bogus claims. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people. They tried to use fear and violence to stop specific proceedings of the first branch of the federal government, which they did not like. McConnell made the remarks on his last full day as majority leader, speaking on the eve of President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s inauguration as the Senate was bracing to receive a single article of impeachment from the House charging Trump with incitement of insurrection. So the Kentucky Republican has indicated privately that he believes that Trump has committed impeachable offenses, but he has yet to decide whether to vote to convict the president, and many senators in his party are waiting for a sign from Mr. McConnell before making their own judgments. He controls, unsurprisingly, a significant block of this party, and this big statement, at least to me, seems like a decision has been made at the upper echelons of the conservative movement.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is a lot of people are thinking like Mitch McConnell is doing this all for himself in regards to oh, look at how independent he is now. But I think you pretty much said it perfectly. He's just doing it because, literally 2 weeks ago, corporate PACs started to announce that they were going to be backing off of, donating to the Republicans. And Rick Scott, of all people, because he runs the RSCC, the Republican Senate campaign committee, he just got actually elected to that this year. He's in a bit of a hot seat because he was one of the senators who actually, quite frankly, had the audacity to vote against certifying the Pennsylvania electors. So this whole thing is definitely not because Mitch McConnell is independent, or as many pundits say, oh, look at how much Mitch has really, kind of stepped away from Trump. No, he's doing it all for the calculation of the Republican Party. I mean, they lost Senate control in a state, well, from a state, excuse me, not in a state, from a state that, quite frankly, should have gone to the Republicans. I mean, yeah, I think Warnock and Ossoff are pretty good candidates. I think Warnock is, at least I'm not going to say Ossoff necessarily is. But you have to admit, like 3 months ago, we would never expect the Democrats to win both seats in Georgia. And, there was a lot of things that occurred after the election, and that Mitch McConnell, I think, definitely had a lot of personal grievances towards, but he definitely wasn't voicing them because there was no political calculation for him to say, you got to stop with these fraud things until the Capitol literally, I mean, got bombarded by these far right extremists. I mean, just think about that for a second. I mean, everyone's like, oh, he has the independence. Well, see, the thing is, though, he doesn't, because he only did it when it was a good calculation for himself and for his party, which is something that I think, in regards to this impeachment trial, I think that's the reason why he's saying he's more open to looking at the options rather than just immediately shutting it down like he, quite frankly, typically would. So, that's just nothing I had to add in regards to that.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Like, have you heard of any, like, in terms of the Republicans and your knowledge of the Republicans in the Senate, can there be 17 votes properly mustered here?
Well, see, the thing is, I can see, Lisa Murkowski, actually, shockingly, yes, that's one I can definitely see, but that's now we got 16 more. Susan Shaken Collins is really iffy here because she is, like, on the fence from what I've been able to understand. And I don't necessarily see any type of reasoning to see her voting against, but I don't really see any reason for her to vote for it. I think at the end of the day, I think she probably will end up voting for it, given, it's probably not going to get to 17. So it's more of like, oh, look, I'm on the record for this, even though it doesn't do anything. Like basically her vote against Amy Coney Barrett. Because if she had to vote yes on Amy Coney Barrett, she definitely would have, but she didn't have to. The other 15 senators, I mean, I can't really think of any because the fact of the matter is we've already heard from some senators like Joni Ernst from Iowa who's saying that it might not be constitutional to remove him. Lindsey Graham saying we got to unite the countries now with their messages. It's like ridiculous. These people are like, they're taking, I mean, look, I'm not saying Biden's playbook is a good playbook or anything, but I mean, they are taking a lot of his platitudes and saying, look, we got to unite the country. We got to do this. We got to do that. Right after they literally incited and fueled a ginormous mob to the Capitol. I mean, again, it's all for political calculation. I mean, that's like going to be the motif of the night because the entire calculation of them denouncing it is for the own good of their party. But quite frankly, I mean, this is going off to a way different conversation. I'll make this quick. The Republican Party is in a time right now where they're going to have to really reevaluate their pathway forward because a lot of Republicans still like Trump. I mean, 84% of the party in a recent poll from Pew Research Center still believes Trump did an amazing job and would vote for him again. And he's had some of the highest numbers. I mean, before this whole thing with the insurrection, he was in the 90s for approval rating amongst Republicans, which is one of the highest amongst any Republican president from his own party. I mean, I think the Democrats were actually even lower than that with Obama, to give a little bit of a comparison here. But there's a lot of support for Trump, and I think the thing that it's going to be quite interesting because I think it's funny because people always say the Democrats are very split, and I think they are. I think they are split. I think that a lot of the progressives, however, have realized that look, I think it's better for us to unite for now, and then we could figure out our problems later, which I don't necessarily think is a great thing. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be necessarily a untactical thing to do because right now the Republican Party is going to have a massive rift. They're going to have the traditional Republicans, which are still conservative. I'm not saying they're like moderate or any type of, let's, do bipartisan work here. Or you're going to have the Trump Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, these type of wackos who, I mean, they have a lot of support. It's actually quite scary. But going back to the thing now with the impeachment, I don't think it's going to be feasible. But then again, I can't say because there might be some surprises because we haven't heard from a lot of the senators. We haven't heard, for example, we haven't heard from we haven't heard from all the senators. Like, for example, there was one Rob Portman from Ohio. We haven't heard from him yet as of yet. I know he mentioned that he would be open to doing something in regards to blocking Trump from running for office again. We haven't heard from a good amount of the senators, but if I had to bet on it, I would probably say I think there's going to be a couple walkovers. It's probably going to be like 4 or 5 surprises, but I don't think that we're going to have 15 surprises.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, as of now, it still seems unlikely. But I think the real surprise will be if Mitch McConnell comes out there and does do that vote, does kind of like stick his neck on the line. And if he is actually prepared to do that, he will like almost certainly be doing it, I think at least, with another like large portion of Republicans. So like if he goes, there are going to be a lot of other people going with him.
Definitely. I mean, I actually know. I would have to agree with you there because I think some of the more hesitant Republicans who were already on the fence with the whole idea of Trumpism in their party, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying Mitch McConnell was hesitant. I think deep down inside, I think he definitely was a bit worried about what Trump would do to the party because, you know, quite frankly, I mean, Mitch McConnell was, I mean, I hate to say this guy's like, 80-something years old, but I mean, he was the face of the Republican Party for years. And, you know, Trump then came in and he basically became the face himself. And well, yeah, Mitch McConnell basically did the obstructionist agenda.
Yeah, well,
he definitely
he doesn't care about being just like the face. Like he cares about like get like the behind the scenes stuff, getting the judges in there, keeping the corporations happy. I think it's not about like being the face, is it? Yeah. But and also so that like things go on smoothly.
Yeah, I think what I meant by that is like he wants to have like a lot of power. That's what I meant. By that. And like I think the one thing I will say
honestly,
though is that
the thing is I think he is content to give up some power and some time in the spotlight at least. I mean maybe some power as well if it means the overall goals can still be served. Because I think he like more than anybody else, especially in the Democratic Party, he is like super ideologically committed to a certain set of principles. You know, they're not good principles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He definitely is like laser focused on basically being an obstructionist and getting his own way basically. But I mean, look, I will say, if Mitch McConnell actually goes forward and does vote for impeachment, again, that kind of goes back to what I said, the 4 or 5 Republican senators surprises, because, we haven't heard from Tom Tillis. We haven't heard from Susan Collins. I ever mentioned her. We haven't heard from Steve Daines from Montana. We haven't heard from a lot of these more traditional Republicans who then obviously went over to Trumpism. But in their roots, they really are kind of like Mitch McConnell style Republicans. Now, the Republicans I can definitely tell you from right now who definitely would not vote for impeachment is definitely like Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. The lady from Mississippi, I forgot her name already. She voted against the Pennsylvania electors as well. The new guy Roger Wicker in Kansas definitely won't, because like these people came in under Trump. They basically ran with a Trump style agenda. I mean, they're basically I hate to say it, but they basically are kissing Trump's ass every time they're in office. I mean, Tommy Tuberville is a really good example of that. I mean, he's an idiot. I mean, he was like, oh, we should delay the entire inauguration, even though it's like the date is written in the Constitution.
Yeah. That is he really just it's very clear that he came kind of from another. He's not a guy who's like a Harvard law educated, and like not saying that that's a bad thing because Harvard law educated people are like mostly very bad people, but he is not like the kind of the fixture of a typical politician. That is for sure. Yeah. But like there is an interesting thing going on here about the kind of Democratic response to this, with people like Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton saying in a very memorable and I think like just insane clip on her podcast, by the way, which even now Hillary Clinton has a podcast, really insane kind of clip today, talking about Russiagate and Putin possibly like being behind this attack here at the Capitol. So let's take a look and listen to this audio, and I will summarize it here for James, who can't hear it after.
We learned a lot about our system of government over the last 4 years with a president who disdains democracy and, as you have said numerous times, has other agendas. What they all are, I don't think we yet know. I hope historically we will find out who he's beholden to, who pulls his strings. I would love to see his phone records to see whether he was talking to Putin the day that the insurgents invaded our capital. But we now know that not just him, but his enablers, his accomplices, his cult members have the same disregard for democracy. Do you think we need a 9/11 type commission to investigate and report everything that they can pull together and explain what happened?
I do. Let me, again, to your point of who is he beholden